Hi, everyone. Welcome to Year of You and the Soul Spark podcast. We are here today with Bailey Ruskus, who is a plant-based chef, and she's also a personal nutrition consultant. And we're going to talk all about finding pleasure and healing through food today, which I'm so excited for. So welcome, Bailey. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So excited to dive in. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because I love food and I love eating plant-based and all of that good stuff. So I always like to start by asking the guests on my show the question, what sparks your soul?
Honestly, this is probably like such an obvious answer, but like I loved eating food. Like there's nothing I love more than like going out to an amazing restaurant and like eating and like having an amazing experience, eating food. It just is like my favorite thing to do. It makes me so happy. So I'd probably say that. Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I wasn't planning to ask you this, but where do you like to go out to eat? You live in San Diego, so do you have any
Yeah.
favorite restaurants?
Yeah, I have so many. I'm actually working on a vegan guide right now because it's so funny because San Diego is actually a mecca for vegan restaurants. Like it has more than most cities in the whole country, which is so wild to think about. I love our little neighborhood joint. It's called Second Nature. They have like a half vegan restaurant. It's like steps away from my house. So their vegan nachos I get like at least once a week. It's very addicting. But I also really love Donna Jean. The chef there is incredible. It's like all plant-based Italian food, and it's honestly some of the best pizza I've had in general, plant-based or not. So they have calzones too now. Oh my God, it's insane.
I
Um,
love Donna Jean.
yes,
So good. Yeah.
it's so good. Oh my God. And then let's think. There's like the sushi place, Now Sushi, down the street from my house. I like love Trilogy. I love the plot up in Oceanside. There's so many, like Rollin' Roots food truck is so amazing. Like I could just go on and on and on about all the vegan restaurants. Like Civico 1845 in Little Italy has a
Mhm.
totally plant-based menu. It's like very authentic Sicilian Italian. And I just like I'm obsessed with all the people that work there, and it's just amazing. Even Costa Brava here in Pacific Beach has tons of plant-based options. It's a
Really?
tapas Spanish place. Yeah, so I'm always getting sangria and like diving in on their mushrooms and all the good things.
Oh yeah, I actually went there for the first time recently, and like I used to go there all the time years and years ago,
Yeah.
and I got the mushrooms and the
Hmm.
sangria and
Yeah,
delicious, and the
so good.
potatoes. So
Oh
good.
God,
Yeah.
yeah, so good. Yeah. Everything there is so good.
Yeah, there's literally nothing better than eating delicious food that's also good for your body, which is like one of
Yeah.
the reasons I'm so excited to dive into this topic today. Um, Can you tell us, because you're coming out with a book,
Hmm.
and I feel like this is a great segue to just start talking about this. Will you tell us about your book and what it's all
Yeah.
about and what inspired you to write it and all that good
Yeah,
stuff?
totally. So, last year, like I had a magical moment happen. A publisher found me through a hashtag. So, literally, like I posted a recipe, a publisher found me through a hashtag. I got a book deal plopped into my lap, which doesn't really happen. A lot of times you need an agent, and I've been in the publishing world. My mom's an author, my brother's an author, so it's like usually much more complicated process than that. But the whole thing was like she gave me 3 months to write it, start to
Wow.
finish, which is like super sped up. But I've wanted to write a cookbook my whole life. Like I've always dreamed of having a cookbook, having a show. Like there's literally videos of me being 8 years old, like making raviolis for a camera that I like set up. I'm literally doing the same thing now as an almost 30-year-old. So like it's been ingrained in me for a long time. And, this book is kind of like a culmination of a lot of recipes that I've been saving for a long time. And also just it's a story of my own healing journey. I really wrote it for people who are looking to heal their bodies, but don't want to give up on the things that they love, and really want to respect their culture. There's so many cultural foods in the book. And there's just like so much to be said that you can respect your culture and your body at the same time. You can heal. There's so many things that we deal with as humans. I personally have endometriosis, but people have PCOS and high blood pressure and heart disease. And there's just so many ailments that people are dealing with all the time that in a lot of cases, like the only thing that their doctors are really giving them is prescriptions and not a whole lot of hope. And the reality is that's just not the case. Like you really can truly heal your body with, of course, a team of like healers and doctors that understand that you want to heal naturally, but also through what you're eating and putting into your body, because food is just really at the end of the day a transfer of energy. And so when you can really start to think about it in that sense and really start to eat more consciously by educating yourself and learning how to cook with, different ingredients, you can really start to kind of like heal your body. So my book is called Cook Heal Go Vegan, and I'm so excited. There's 70 recipes in there. And there's actually an entire section in the book called The Essentials, because something I've really noticed in the vegan world is that you can be a vegan and be really unhealthy. Just the word vegan doesn't make you healthy. And I think a lot of people stray away from veganism because of this idea that, well, my friend Sally was vegan and she was the most unhealthy she'd ever been when she was vegan. And I mean, that's probably true because the packaged processed vegan foods they're processed foods. No matter which way you flip the coin, it's a processed food, which has lots of oil in it and salt and like all of these things that we're like kind of trying to get away from by being plant-based and heart healthy and all of these things, right? Hormone healthy. So yeah, this chapter, The Essentials, is basically all those things that we would buy at the grocery store shelves to kind of like fulfill our recipes, or to fulfill like milk and butter and cheeses and things like that like, it's kind of overwhelming. Like, okay, how am I going to, make my own vegan butter? Like that sounds wild. So, but you can do it. It's easy, And so that was the first chapter that I had thought of, was like, I need to make a blueprint of essentials that people can make so that they can make things that are refined, sugar free and dairy free, and like have all these things so that the baseline of their recipes are healthy. Because you can make a vegan recipe, but if you use like 5 processed ingredients inside of a plant-based recipe, it's not necessarily going to be that much better for you. So that's the essentials. And that's like, honestly, just like the very iceberg of the book. But that was kind of like where the inspiration came from, was just like, okay, let's give people what they want and what they need.
Absolutely. Which is always what's super important, and
yeah.
And going vegan can, like you said, be so daunting. So I think that's really powerful that you created that for people. I also love that you talked about the energy of food, and not in a caloric sense, but in
Mm-mm.
a like high vibration, low vibration kind of sense. I think that's what you meant, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, in like both cases. So when we're thinking of like high vibe foods, I think we hear this a lot when we're talking about like herbs and like fresh vegetables and stuff. But when you really look at like the meat and dairy industry and factory farming, especially when you're getting, animal products in this way, what you're consuming is like petrified meat. And so you're consuming fear and anxiety and all of these things that these animals are experiencing for their whole lives. And even if they're pasture raised and grown on a farm, the last thing that they experience is this like type of like really intense fear and tension and stress in their body. And so like that's what we're consuming and that's what we're eating. And dairy across the board is something that I teach about a lot. It's a sensitive subject because people like love their cheese. I was one of those people for sure.
Me too.
Yeah. But
Cheese, like I would eat a cheese plate for dinner.
yeah, same. And, I had like such an addiction to cheese as well because I'm a French trained chef classically. And like I could eat a whole block of Gruyere and I would be so happy. But the reality is that the dairy industry is the most like horrific industry in the United States. It's like, I always say that there's no worse treated animal than the dairy cow. And someone said to me the other day, they're like, well, the milk that, that we get is just leftover. It's just not the case. We basically impregnate them, take the baby, and then take all their milk and then just do it over and over and over again until they collapse and die. And not to be like super dreadful on this podcast, but the truth is intense. And so all that dairy is like that energy that you're getting. And so we really want to think about that exchange of energy that we're eating. And like, that's what our cells are made of. Like the food that we're eating is what our cells are made of. And I was so chronically sick that it really took me a long time and a hard look in the mirror to be like, I need to change. Like, I need to stop. Like, I'm suffering and I don't want to contribute to other suffering. I feel like, the chain has to be broken at some point in order not only for me to heal, but in order to have like a bigger impact in the world by just what I'm eating.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful. And I appreciate you sharing those statistics because they are a bit overwhelming and dreadful, but that's the truth. And
Yeah.
got to face the truth if we want to
Yeah.
see this world, if we want to see our planet, thrive and other living beings thrive. It's not just us humans here on this planet.
Totally.
It's every living thing. Will you tell us a little bit more about your story? Because you mentioned you had endometriosis. You mentioned you were a classically trained French chef. So I think that's really cool and amazing. And it's so interesting how you shifted from that to where you are now. So will you just tell us a little bit more about your story?
Sure. Yeah, it's been a wild ride to say the least. So I started cooking when forever. It's always something I've done as a hobby, but I started cooking in a kitchen when I was 11 by choice. Instead of going to summer camp, I was like, I want to go make croissants and cannolis and put together 1,000 cake boxes if that's what I have to do to work in this pastry kitchen. And so I've truly been working for a super long time, like 2 decades in back of house kitchens. And in high school, I suffer with endometriosis. I got diagnosed also when I was 11, which was pretty interesting. Wow. And so I had been dealing with chronic pain and just kind of this like hamster wheel of like working a lot and then like partying a lot, especially once I got into high school. So I didn't really have grades to get into like a decent normal school. So I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go to like a super hard French culinary school. They'll take money from literally anyone. They're like, sure, try it out, because it's hard ass work. Like, honestly, the dropout rate of culinary schools is like 75% because people are like, oh, I want to cook, but it's honestly so hard. It's so labor intensive. There's so much to know. It's just super intense. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I moved to San Francisco when I turned 18 and literally didn't know anyone, went to Le Cordon Bleu and just started my culinary training. And it's interesting because at the same time, like my endometriosis started kind of getting like just worse. I just was eating so much French food, like you name it, duck confit and like there's literally like bacon fat and everything, or pork belly and everything, and like croissants and so much butter you could like literally swim in it. Like it's just crazy. And so I gained like 30 pounds in culinary school. And then kind of made my way jumping around restaurants and started my own business while I was in culinary school as a private chef. And so I was working back of house restaurants, working as a private chef for the rest of the time that I was living in San Francisco. And then my pain just got so bad that I couldn't really I didn't really know how to function because I never had really been given the tools to function as like a normal member of society while being in chronic pain. And I wasn't just like working at a desk or something. I was literally like doing this intense work. And I was also bartending on the side to make ends meet because, people in back of house don't really make that much money, And so yeah, I ended up like quitting cooking. I was like, this isn't for me. I'm not supposed to be a chef. Like I didn't fit in the industry. Like sexual harassment in the industry is like super, super high. And I was like, this just isn't for me. I'm in pain. I don't get it. So I basically spent like an entire year just partying. And like I just like was on this hamster wheel of pain and partying and pain. And I ended up moving back home with my parents and was like, okay, I need to like figure out what's going on with my body because this like isn't sustainable. And so I ended up, this was kind of a turning point for me. I had such intense back pain, so many things going on. I knew I had endometriosis, but there's really no studies going on around endometriosis. And especially then there's just not a lot of research. There's not a lot of interest in research. And the interesting thing is 1 in 10 women have endometriosis, and that number is growing all the time.
Yeah. So I was going to say, that's so crazy. And just kind of,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
It's
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's isolating too, because they only
Mhm.
give you band-aids, like, surgeries or birth control, or like, here, try this new drug, or here, do you want to be in this clinical trial for a new opiate? So it was like a lot of opioids, like a lot of
Mhm.
prescription drugs, like a lot of hormone, just like roller coasters. And my turning point was I went to a spine specialist because my back was in so much pain that I just could barely walk. Like my left leg would violently shake when I would lay down, like crazy symptoms. And this doctor wanted to fuse my spine. And at the time, I was like 23, 24. He's like, yeah, worst case scenario, you'll be in a wheelchair. Best case scenario, you'll like have a cane. And I'm just like,
What?
what? Literally.
God.
What are you talking? Like, I was like, what? I'm 23. Like, this is insane. I'm not going to do this. And so then I went back to school for nutrition, started learning about food, glyphosate, started learning about this is way before I even thought about going plant-based. And I was like, I need to try to heal myself first before I like basically mangle my body in the OR. And um, so yeah, that's kind of the beginning of how I started switching how I did my business. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back into private chefing, but I'm going to try to work on other people healing their bodies while I try to heal mine at the same time. Cause I'm like living at my parents' house, a fish out of water in my 20s.
Mhm.
Like, okay, let's try to do it. So that's what I did. And then I ended up moving to San Diego to open up a cooking school. It didn't end up working out, but yeah, my endometriosis just wasn't getting better. Like I was still eating lots of dairy, and like my back pain was like slowly getting better, but it just wasn't getting better. So I had a surgery like 4 years ago, and at that day I was like, I'm going vegan. Like it's the only thing I haven't tried. I always thought of going plant-based as a total last resort because I was like, how am I going to give up cheese and like, like what, I'm never going to eat salmon again, and all these things that I really like identified with. I feel like as human beings, we identify as our food. It's one of the most intimate
Mhm.
things that we do every single day. And it's very much a part of who we are, is what we eat, where we come from, what our grandmothers made for us when we were kids. All of those things are so embedded in our identities that like I was terrified to go plant-based. I was like, who am I without cheese? Who am I without this way that I have been cooking? And then I went plant-based, and within like 2 months, and I also like got off birth control at the same time. I was like, okay, I'm in full detox mode. I'm giving up prescription pills. I'm gonna like meditate my way through these painful moments. And it was like super rough. Of course, detoxing off birth control is really challenging.
Mhm.
And cheese, birth control and cheese
Yeah.
cocktail.
Yeah, the birth
Um,
control is a whole other story,
yeah,
Yeah.
and it just changed my life. It was unbelievable. My now husband went vegan with me because he was like, you're never gonna be able to do this by yourself. Like, this is insane. And so he went vegan with me. He literally is thriving as a vegan. Like the guy can surf for like 6 hours at a time. He's 6'4". He has so much energy. He eats like 3,000 calories a day, and he's thriving as a vegan. And so, yeah, we just went vegan, never looked back. We'll never go back. And it changed my life in the most profound way. And I wish that I had known sooner. Like, I wish that it was more accepted where I came from within my family. I wish that it was more accepted at the culinary school that I was in. I wish that veganism and eating plant-based wasn't just a thing that like the vegans do. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
wish it was something that was more available because it truly changed my life. And so since then, I've been working with clients one-on-one. I've taught, like in the last year, I taught over 15,000 people with like corporate wellness retreats. Like virtually from COVID. And it's just been honestly one of the most life-changing things. I've seen people go into remission from cancer, reverse diabetes, like literally just from stopping eating processed foods, meat and dairy, eggs, and going plant-based. And it's interesting because it's also, of course, like exercise and drinking more water. But once you start to take care of your body, those things just kind of like fall in. You kind of have more energy than to exercise. And you're kind of like, oh, maybe I'll buy a new water bottle. I'll bring it with me. So like there's so many ripple effects that happen, and it's honestly, and it the timing was perfect because the plant-based movement kind of exploded as I decided I was going to do this, because even 3 years ago, like the plant-based movement isn't really what it is now. So yeah, here we are. And now I have this amazing book. And like, I was so terrified to turn my business to being plant-based. And to be totally honest, like I lost thousands of followers when I came out, literally like when I came out as a vegan,
Mm-hmm.
thousands of followers. I like basically lost a huge chunk of my business. A lot of my private chef clients were no longer interested in working with me. It was impossible for me to book cooking classes. Like, all the people that I would host retreats with were like, well, what about those people that need chicken? And I'm like, well, nobody needs chicken. Like, people can eat vegan for 2 days and they're going to survive. Like, it's going to be totally fine, you know? But
But that's just what our society's like taught
mhm.
people. And unless you inform yourself with stuff like this, people think that
you,
that's a
yeah,
necessity,
it's so
know?
true. And there's just like a lot of misinformation out there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this super scarce, like the idea that like, oh my God, but where are you going to get your protein? It's like, no one was wondering where I was getting my protein before I went vegan, A. And B, like, the thing that's so interesting of the studies that I've read and the nutrition certifications that I've done is like, nobody talks about if you're getting too much protein, because that is actually such a huge, like, it puts you at higher risk for liver cancer and kidney disease and prostate cancer. And like, it's crazy when you think if, getting too much protein, and no one ever talks about that. So I'm just like, why
Mm-hmm.
is everyone so freaking protein crazy when really we should be looking at like fiber and micronutrients and like, are you getting enough iron and what's your absorption rate of these things, but like, the protein obsession is so real. I talk about that a lot in my membership, but yeah, it's really funny how people treat you so differently once you decide to go plant-based. And that's just something that if you do, whoever's listening, if you do decide to go plant-based, you just got to like tough it out for a little bit and eventually people will leave you alone, you know?
Totally. And then what's cool though is like then it starts to inspire people. I mean, I went vegan for the first time back in 2007
Mhm.
and there was
Nothing.
not good
Yeah.
vegan food. I mean, I was in college. I didn't know how to cook. I started getting sick all the time because I was just eating all the unhealthy processed
Right.
soy-based back
Right.
then vegan food. And then I've been fully plant-based again for like 4 years. It's a totally different world. There's great vegan cheese, all of that. But
Mhm.
anyway, my point is like at first my dad, he's all about the meat and all that stuff,
Mhm.
gave me crap. And now him and my mom are both trying to like cut back. And, so even without pushing that on them, it's inspiring them to actually start to be healthier, which is really beautiful. And I want to say, because I love your story, and this is something I think about a lot, is just those little things on our journeys that really show us what our purpose is and
Mhm.
like what guide us to doing great things in the world and sharing our gifts with the world. And I think your endometriosis is, a powerful point or a powerful thing that happened to you that brought you here. And because of that, like you're here and you're sharing this amazing message with the world. And it's so powerful. So I think it's just this reminder that when we're going through a challenge in our lives, whether it be our like physical health or our mental health or whatever it is, like
Mhm.
just knowing that there's something in that that can like push you to getting a book deal from a hashtag on Instagram. I mean,
I know.
it's fucking amazing,
I know,
right?
it's so wild.
so,
It's
so
true.
yeah.
Yeah. And when you think about it, like, so when I was a little girl, I wanted to be able to make impacts like I'm making now, but I didn't know how I would do that. And then halfway along that journey from then to now, I was done being a chef. People would call me a chef and I'd be like, don't fucking call me that. Like, that's not who I am anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a chef. I don't belong in that world because I truly didn't. And I mean, I still kind of feel like I don't because it's so ego male dominated. That's like a whole different podcast.
Part
um,
two.
yeah, right. But it's like you don't really know how you're gonna get there. You know that you will. And something like in my soul was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And the reality is that once I got so uncomfortable in so many ways in so many different years, that uncomfortability and literally me saying my business is vegan and announcing it to like thousands of people online and doing all this stuff, that was literally me jumping off the cliff. I was like, okay, let's go. Like, I'm jumping off the cliff. I have no plan B, like, I think this is the right move. This feels right in my soul. And at first, it was like crickets. It was like people were not being receptive of it. I was, like I said, getting bullied by family members and like I would go out to dinner with friends and the biggest topic was like me being a vegan, me and Steve being a vegan. And like they would literally like kind of bully us. And they, of course, would order like meat and stuff. And like while they're eating meat, talk to us about how crazy we are, like being vegan and we're like eating fries at a place that doesn't serve any good vegan food or whatever. But
Gotta get
like,
used to that
yeah, I know,
sometimes.
right? No, you just pick better restaurants, honestly.
Or
You just
live in
don't let
San
them
Diego.
pick.
Yeah.
Totally. But like you just don't know where, I guess my point to all that is like you just don't know where the path's going to take you and you have to go with your gut feeling. And especially if you know what you're doing is right in the world, like it's just ethically right. Like, and that's what I always say too is like this plant-based lifestyle, it's my baseline. So it's not like I'm searching for food or I'm super confused or anything like that. It's like I have such a strong like core baseline of ethics based on what I'm eating and the products that I'm purchasing because of this, is that everything else is just easier because I'm not making this internal choice every single day whether I'm going to choose this or that because such a big choice is already made. And that I think really helped attract the people to me that were looking for something similar. And of course, it takes time because nothing worth doing is ever that easy and it never happens overnight, but like you just have to like have a little faith in your vision and like you just got to go with your gut. You got to go with those vibes. You got to really like follow that, even if sometimes you feel like you're blindly following it, like it will make sense. And I really feel like those things that challenge you are supposed to challenge you because you're not ready yet for what you're asking for.
Mm-hmm. The total like key to it to manifesting anything. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you have to take inspired action to work towards what you're calling in. You're not just going to get that big thing that you're trying to call in, whether it be to have a plant-based lifestyle with ease. Like you still have to work towards it
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll get that,
Exactly.
or like some other getting your book deal, whatever it is. Like
Anything.
you have to like do the work and show up, and it really is like once you get it integrated, it's just like you used to cook with meat and
Mm-hmm.
cheese. It's the same thing once you know how to do it. And I
Yeah.
think your staples in your book is going to be really powerful for people to be able to just start to like get those basic things down because that's
Yeah.
really what adds up. Um, can we talk about maybe, if people are just getting into this and
Totally.
yeah, how they can really like understand how to build flavor with their food. So it's not just like you're eating like bland broccoli and like
Yeah.
tofu and it's like,
Yeah.
ew.
Totally. So this is what I think of. I always make this comparison because I think it works so well. Okay, if you're cooking a chicken breast, you would never just cook it by itself. You like wouldn't. You would like season it and marinate it. And sometimes you would like, I don't know, pound it with a meat pounder, or you would like shred it and then you'd cook it in a sauce. Like the same concept goes for plants. Just because it's plants doesn't mean they get less love. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve a good marinade or like, a little bit of extra time. And I think that's a very common misconception because in the standard American diet, we're like putting so much emphasis and so much like, just so much like main star of the show is that meat. And then we're just going to steam the broccoli or whatever. Maybe once in a while I'll have like a really bomb side of Brussels sprouts. But for the most part, like the plants are like the sideline. And then the main like part and like the hero of the dish is the meat. So what we're really wanting to look at is like how can we shift our thinking and really look at building flavor no matter what you're doing in the same ways. So there's different pillars of flavor, and this is what I was thinking about when you're creating like a sauce, when you're creating really anything, is you were looking for fat. So fattiness could come from like cashews, like nuts, or it could come from olive oil. But you really are looking for like a fatty kind of flavor. And what that does is that coats your mouth. Then you're looking, and I'm just looking at kind of like an overall dish, they usually have all these elements. Then you're looking for like sourness, so or citrusy. So like if you have a dish that's like kind of flat, like it has all the elements, it's like salty and fatty and it's got herbs, but it's flat, probably just needs a little bit of brightness. So you just add like a little bit of lemon or lime or like vinegar or something to it. And that's really going to like add that tang and kind of brighten up the dish. Even if you don't want it to be acidic, right? It'll just kind of like change that flavor in just the way. So then there's saltiness because God, we love our salt, we need that salt. And then there's sweet. So I always like to do sweet in every dish, I always add like a tiny little bit of sweetness, whether it's from a specific type, like a butternut squash or something, or if it's from just like a coconut aminos, which is one of my
Mm.
favorite seasoning sauces, or yeah, whether it's just like maple syrup. Like I put maple syrup in savory dishes all the time. And it's not like I'm like Buddy the Elf gouging my dishes in maple syrup. It's literally just like a tiny little dash, because actually maple syrup, just a little bit of it, is one of my favorite additions to a salad dressing because it rounds out the flavor so perfectly. And then the final one, oh, there's two more actually. So there's spiciness. So even if you don't like spicy food, I always recommend adding like a tiny little touch. Not always, but if you're making like a curry or something, you want to add just like a little jalapeno. I always recommend having someone who likes spicy to try it first to see how spicy it is. Or just like a little squirt of hot sauce or something. It really, really helps bring depth to the flavor. And then the final thing is umami, which is the flavor you taste when you taste like soy sauce or what, like, I don't know, anything kind of Asian flavored, is that
Mm.
umami. And basically what umami is those five things all together at once. So you're really just looking for that perfectly rounded flavor, which is that umami flavor. And so when you start to develop recipes, and I talk about this in the book too, when you see a sauce being created, what I really like always recommend somebody does is, recipes are great guidelines. They're perfect to learn how to do something or to get inspiration. And so instead of just making the recipe kind of like unconsciously, be like, okay, so now we have this sauce and we've added like cocoa aminos, and now we're going to add rice vinegar. Well, I'm going to like taste how the rice vinegar affects the cocoa aminos and how it changes the flavor. And then if you add like a little bit of sriracha to that, you're going to taste that. And then if you add a little bit of sesame oils to that, you're going to taste that. And what this is doing, I mean, it's fun. Of course, this is how I
Sounds
have fun. I don't know like what other people do for fun, but
fun.
of course, this is also training your tongue. So, like your tongue and your taste buds are like any other muscle in your body. You have to train them to like things and to respond to your brain. And so, when you're able to slowly start tasting in layers of flavor, you're actually able to train your palate to understand how food is being created. So, eventually, your palate will tell you how much of something to put in there without ever even tasting it. And that's kind of why chefs become so good at what they do, because they
Mm.
spend all freaking day tasting things, right? They're like always testing. And you don't necessarily have to be obsessive like that, like chefs are. But if you're really interested in like learning how to build flavor, I would just taste as you go, and like also not be afraid of seasonings, not be afraid of using different kinds of salt, herbs, different spices. Again, like using citrus. Citrus is an incredible, incredible thing. Um, there's just, and of course, like with that, like use fresh, organic, local, seasonal, fresh fruits and vegetables, because those have the most flavor, they have the most nutrient density, they're bright and beautiful, and they were grown by someone who like really wants you to enjoy them. So you get like this whole flavor energy explosion in your mouth when you're eating really fresh fruits and veggies. So yeah, those are my like 100 tips to like build flavor
Great.
better. Yeah. And to just like not be afraid, season, like just, and if you added too much seasoning, then you know better for next time, but just get creative with it. Have fun. It doesn't need to be boring just because it's plants.
Yeah. I love the idea of like tasting as you go. That sounds really fun and not something I mean, I do a little bit, but not something I do a lot. So I'm
Yeah,
definitely going to take that and play around with it more. But
do
yeah,
it.
I love cooking because it's not like baking, where
Yeah.
baking's like you have to be precise, but
Oh,
cooking even
yeah.
with plants, it's like, right, you can just
Yeah.
do exactly what you're saying, like taste as you go and just have fun with it. And
Exactly. And just like eventually, once you start to feel comfortable, you've made like a certain recipe a bunch of times and you're like really loving it, then you can start to challenge yourself to change it up a little bit and be like, okay, what would happen if I took out this and added this? Or, there's so many ways that you can kind of be creative yourself. And so, yeah, it's like use the recipe as a rule to start. And then as you get more comfortable, then you can start to use the recipe as a guideline and just kind of your support system, your little cheerleader in the back, like, don't worry, I'm here in case you like mess it up, but like just we can get creative. Like cooking's one big experiment, and you got to just have fun with it. And if you totally failed it, then you learned something.
totally. There's no such thing as failure, right? It's just a redirection, even in
Yeah.
the kitchen.
Yeah, tell that to somebody that just spent 2 hours making a dish that did not turn out.
Totally. I mean, I've been there. I tried to make my friend latkes for Hanukkah
Oh
last
my
year
gosh,
and it was
yeah.
a disaster. Like sweet potatoes, it was horrible.
Yeah, latkes can be challenging for sure.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, that one was a flop, but
Yeah, totally. Well, that's a good attitude.
yeah. Well, Bailey, thank you so much for all of this. I mean, I feel like we could just talk about this forever.
Totally.
Do you want to tell us, like, tell everyone what your freebie is, first of all,
Yeah.
and then if there's anything else that we didn't touch on yet that you want to share with everybody, and then after that we can kind of go into the Q&A, and
Okay.
the ladies are here can hop in if they want to and ask you questions.
Perfect. So my freebie, so right now I actually have an online cooking membership. It's one of the best things I've ever created. And I'm not just saying that. At the beginning of the pandemic last year, I had to, as we all did, I had to massively shift my business, how I was like relating to the community. And I did a donation-based cooking class, and like hundreds of people came. People were like, I need to cook healthy. I'm like so aware of my immune system right now. Of course, I'm like, people were either coming out of fear or out of boredom or out of whatever it was. And I was like, wow, there's a huge need for this. And so over the last year, we've created this membership, and it's an online membership where we do 2 cooking classes a month. But there's also like a whole learning portal on there. So there's nutrition trainings, and we host little challenges on there. So right now there's a 5-day breaking up with dairy challenge, where every day you get like a 10-minute video that teaches you a new recipe, and also like talks about facts about the dairy industry and like your health related to dairy. And it's just like such a cool little challenge. And there's just all sorts of amazing content in there. And you also get all the on-demand past classes that we've had before. So they're amazing. Like one of our most watched ones is our paella class. Like it was one of the most fun like work hours I've ever had in my life. We're just like making sangria and paella, and like so many people still go back and watch it.
That
So
sounds
that is,
amazing.
yeah, so fun. Like we literally have such a good time on these classes. In our last class, there was someone, she was new. I'd never seen her in the classes before. And she literally had a full party at her house, and everyone's cooking along with us, like playing music. And I'd be like, what's up, guys? And like everyone would like, it was just so ridiculous. I was like, this is amazing. So
So fun.
yeah, we definitely have a good time. And it's also like, over the course of, like, I have people that have been there from the beginning. In the very beginning, they were really struggling, just like keeping up chopping things and like having tons of questions and feeling super vulnerable and like overwhelmed with like cooking long and kind of cooking new things. And now they're literally chopping things faster than I am, and they're like on it, and they're just like, I'm just like, wow, the transformations that I've seen is so wild. And it's so cool because like it's on Zoom, so I can really see into their kitchens. And if they have questions, they ask me. So that is my freebie. I'm giving a free month of our cooking membership. So it's $48 a month. And yeah, you can use the code cook with me, all caps, at www.chefbay.kitchen/cook vibe heal. And yeah, just a free month to check it out, take some classes, see if it's your vibe, check out some of the nutrition trainings. We even have a class on there on how to get your dog off kibble. So we like really like we hit all the corners of the food world. So yeah, I'd love to see you guys in there, and just to hang out with us. We also have this cool like membership portal page where you can RSVP to our classes. Automatically uploads to your iCalendar with the Zoom link attached. It reminds you 30 minutes before. It's just like, it's incredible. It's so easy, and you can DM me directly on there. So I do one-on-one health coaching like virtually through the membership. So it's just kind of like an all-in-one thing that I'm so proud of. And I'm so happy that I get to do that.
So cool. I can't wait to check
Yeah.
it out. That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
It's
you
gonna be
have
really,
to.
really fun. Yeah.
I'd love to
Yeah.
see you in class.
And for everybody watching and listening, the link to her membership will be on the landing page. So if you're watching from your view, it'll be right under where the link to this video is. So you can find that
Cool.
easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Should we open it up to Q&A, or is there anything else you wanted to mention before then?
I think that's it. The book comes out on August 17th. Everywhere books are sold. It's actually available for pre-sale right now. So if you pre-sale it, it just lets bookstores know that people want this book stocked, which is actually super helpful for authors. Pre-sales really just mean so much. So if you wanted to pre-sale, the book is called Cook, Heal, Go Vegan, 70 recipes. And yeah, I'm so excited. I'm also doing two book launch events. So I'm doing one here in San Diego, and then I'm also doing another one in Denver. So if you're interested in that, you can follow me on Instagram to find more information about that.
Ooh, awesome. And
Yeah,
that's on the landing page too. And I also put one of your recipes so they can find
perfect.
your blog easily. I put the Kung Pao.
Cauliflower.
Kung Pao.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sounds really good.
it's
So,
so good. It's
yeah.
like so good.
Sorry, I think my dog's about to bark. Coco, no. All right, you guys, does anyone want to ask a question? Feel free to just unmute yourself and go for it. Debbie, you got a oh, Tessa, you gonna join us?
Yeah, I'll ask a question.
Awesome.
I think your cooking class sounds really fun, and
Cool.
I'm bummed that I didn't know about it actually earlier because God, during COVID that would have been so great.
I know, right?
But I wanted to know because I'm not a great cook, or I don't, at least the tools and the pots and pans and different things like that. Do you need a lot of stuff to to participate?
That's a great question. So, the thing that we always say for like plant-based cooking in general is you need a good blender. That's like pretty much the one thing that you do need. And it's always like an investment that will always, pay off. Um, but other than that, no, like, basic stuff like cookie sheets and pots and pans and stuff like that, like just kind of basic cooking equipment. But we don't use I don't know. If we use something else, we'll also give you another option in case we're using a food processor and you don't have one. But we give out the recipe and the equipment list a week before. So you have plenty of time to get it. Or like if you really want to make the recipe and it's a food processor, you can like have time to borrow one from a friend. But for the most part, no, like our next class, we're making flautas. And what is it? It's mezcal old fashions and flautas, which are from the cookbook. And all you need is like a saute pan and like a soup pot to like steam the potatoes in. So it's super minimal for the most part. Unless we get around the holidays, then I'm like, okay, we're gonna like go all in and like cook some awesome things. But other than that, it's pretty simple.
Awesome. And do you guys usually do a drink with the recipe then?
Yeah. So this summer we're kind of doing cocktails because in our membership we actually just added our ebook so that you can once you join the membership you can download the ebook. It's just part of it. And it's 15 cocktail and mocktail recipes. So we'll do the cocktail and then if someone doesn't drink, then we'll do a mocktail version as well. And when we kind of like to do that because then we can all cheers and like sip on something yummy while we're cooking. It's really fun.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, I
Like
can't wait to see
I
you in
could like
there.
ask questions and talk all day about that, but I'll let somebody
I
else.
know. Well, honestly, you can send me a DM on Instagram and ask any questions, and I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a great question. Thanks, Tessa. Anybody else have a question? No? Okay. I think we got through so much like amazing stuff here and I love where this conversation went. So thank you so much, Bailey, for being here, for being a part of this
Thanks.
event, for being on the podcast and for what you're doing in the world because like you mentioned, you listen to your soul, you listen to your gut. And I think it's just a beautiful reminder of where that can take us and how it can really help to make the world a better place for all humans and all living beings and all of that. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%. It was my pleasure. Thanks.